Welcome. Tonight we step inside a wine-battered world of storm lanterns, sea mist, and relentless isolation. You're not just watching this one, you're living it. Imagine standing on the jagged coast of Maine in 1893, coat soaked through, with salt spray, as the waves slam rocks below like the fists of a furious god. Behind you looms a tall, narrow tower of bricks and glass, your new home. Welcome to the life of a lighthouse keeper. The good news: you've got job security. Sort of. The bad news: you'll be sharing your days with mildew, gale force winds, and a logbook that demands more attention than a toddler hopped up on molasses candy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I always love seeing those sleepy little check-ins. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Together. You trudge up the rocky shoreline, a trunk dragging behind you like a dead whale, boots squelching in wet sand. The keeper you're replacing barely says a word, just hands you the massive brass key and mutters something about listening to the gulls too long. A little ominous, but you press on. The door creaks open and you step inside. The lighthouse is colder than you expected and smells like kerosene, wet rope, and that particular brand of loneliness usually reserved for widow novels. Stone walls rise around you in a tight spiral, leading to the lantern room far above. But first, your quarters: one small room, one lumpy bed, one window facing the endless sea. At least the wallpaper in peeling. Oh wait, it is. You unpack, in silence, a tin of beans, 3 books, one of them about whales, for some reason, a journal, and a portrait of someone you once promised you'd write to every week. You hang the photo up above the desk. She deserves of you. Outside, the wind moans low, as if it's testing you. That wind will be your constant companion now. No polite small talk, just the occasional scream against the shutters when it really wants to be noticed. You light your first lamp, a small one, for the room. The big one upstairs, that's another matter. You haven't met her yet, the Fresnel lens. They told you during training that she's the heart of this place. Treat her like your firstborn, they said, because if she fails, someone out there dies. No pressure. You climb the narrow, spiraling staircase for the first time that evening, lantern in hand. Every step is slick with damp salt. Your hand grazes the stone wall for balance, fingers trailing over old etchings, names of keepers who came before. A few have been crossed out. You choose not to ask why. At the top, you reach the lantern room, and there she is, the giant lens, a towering glass eye that turns ship-saving light into an endless, rhythmic sweep over the sea. It's quiet up here, almost sacred. You whisper your hello. You check the oil reservoir, trim the wick, clean the soot from the glass. You've read the manual 3 times already, but now your fingers tremble as you turn the crank to wind the gear mechanism. The lamp shudders to life, slowly, and the beam rotates outward. Somewhere, a sailor sighs in relief. You hope there's a romantic notion, isn't there, of what a lighthouse keeper does. Stands at the railing, coat flapping, face stoic. But in truth, the job involves more scrubbing than stargazing. Your first shift ends so much a majestic maritime vigil as a night-long worrying about soot buildup and whether the wind will knock out the flame. Sleep doesn't come easily. The cot creaks, the building hums with wind and damp, and you swear the floor is tilting slightly, even though the lighthouse is moving. That, or you're getting seasick on land, possible. Lighthouse legs are a thing. Fringe science. Sure, but some keepers swore their balance was never the same again. Historians still argue whether it was psychosomatic or just poor flooring. At dawn, you rise to find your breath clouding in the freezing air. There's no insulation. Of course, this is not a place for comfort. It's a place for keeping the light alive. You light the morning stove with the last dry matches and sip coffee so bitter it could wake the dead. The manual calls this a routine adjustment period. You call it day 1 of the slow descent into lighthouse madness. Outside, the sea glitters under gray skies, and a single fishing boat sails past. The fisherman waves. You raise your mug. It's not much, but for now, it's enough. You're a part of something larger now, an invisible thread in the net of lives that rely on this place. That light, you sit at your tiny desk, open the journal, and begin your first entry. March 1st, 1893. First full day, light held through the night. The gulls are louder than expected. Saw a face in the mist, probably not real. More later. Welcome home. The gulls wake you before the sun does, not with cheerful chirps or melodic morning songs, no. These are the screeching, fish breath sirens of the sea, clawing at the window like unpaid landlords. You groan, roll over, and immediately regret it. Every muscle in your body feels like it's been individually kneaded by a vindictive baker. You don't get to sleep in, not here. Not ever. Your day is dictated by something more ancient than alarm clocks or coffee cravings, the tide. And it's already out, pulling the sea back like a housemaid yanking sheets off a bed. You pull on your stiff woolen trousers and scratchy shirt, boots still damp from yesterday. No one tells you how everything in a lighthouse eventually smells, like sea mold and lamp oil. You head down the stairs, each step a cold slap on your joints. At the bottom, you open the storage hatch and haul up 2 buckets. Fresh water, and exactly on tap out here. There's a cistern tank that collects rainwater, but only when it actually rains, which it hasn't in 2 days. And even then, surprise, it's usually crawling with mosquito larvae. You boil it like it's your job. Well, it kind of is. Once the water's on the stove and trying its best to boil, you trudge back up to the lantern room. The light may be off during the day, but the work doesn't stop. That Fresnel lens, she's a diva. She demands daily cleaning, with alcohol and chamois, leather, and the patience of a saint. You pull out the little toolkit, gently undo the panels, and begin the glass polishing ritual. One smudge, and the beam could scatter, and if the beam scatters, someone out there could hit a rock that wasn't supposed to be hit. You hum while you work something vaguely French. No idea why. The acoustics up here are oddly comforting. As you buff the last pane, your stomach growls. Breakfast, a feast of cold beans and hardtack. You bite into the biscuit and briefly consider whether you've accidentally picked up a small piece of driftwood. The textures are similar. Still, it fills the void. Kind of. Back downstairs. It's time to check the logs. A great stack of papers sits on your desk, recording every detail of wind direction, wave height, barometric pressure, and anything else the lighthouse board thinks might matter. You fill in the chart with the precision of a half-awake scribe, pausing only when the pen tip tears through the page again. That ink bottle hates you. This afternoon's tide is low, which means it's a good time to inspect the foundation. You grab the oilskin coat and step outside, instantly regretting it. The wind bites harder than it did yesterday, whistling through every seam in your clothing like it's trying to get inside your bones. You make your way around the base of the lighthouse, dodging seaweed and slippery stones, squinting at the crumbling mortar. There's a small crack near the northern base. Not urgent, but noted. You'll mark it in the maintenance log and worrying about it in, say, 3 weeks. Or never. Whichever comes first. The tide continues its rhythm, in and out, like the world's slowest, wettest metronome. You notice a jellyfish has stranded itself on the rock sporsel. You give it a gentle nudge back into the waves with the end of your boot, whispering something vaguely encouraging. It feels noble, pointless, but noble. Back inside, you take inventory of supplies. Your last delivery was 10 days ago. That leaves you with 2 tins of salted cod, a third of a candle, 5 matches, a half loaf of stale bread that could probably be used as self-defense, and write it all down in your worn notebook. It's said that some keepers developed obsessive habits around counting supplies. Historians still argue whether it was paranoia, training, or just what happens when your best friend is a can of beans named Gerald. By mid-afternoon, the wind begins to change. You can feel it in your teeth somehow, a subtle drop in pressure that makes your ears ring and the lamp wick flicker. Even though it's not lit, you step outside and sniff the air. Rain, maybe more. You consider closing the storm shutters, but decide to wait. No sense rushing unless the cloud starts swirling into the shape of a Victorian lady, in which case you'll reconsider. Evening arrives with a strange kind of silence. Not actual, quiet, but that muffled hush that comes just before weather decides to be dramatic. You fire up the lamp again, same ritual. Trim, oil, crank, light. The flame flickers to life, casting that warm, golden glow that feels more like comfort than warning. The lens turns slowly, baiting the fog and ribbons of light. You lean against the railing outside the lantern room, watching the light cut across the gray. There's something about it hypnotic, repetitive, almost musical. It makes you feel less alone, even though you're the only human for miles. You hear a clatter below. Probably just something falling off a shelf. Hopefully. You wait, ears straining. Nothing else. Just the moan of the wind and the constant, calming sweep of the lantern's eye. The journal comes out again before bed. March 2nd, 1893. Weather fair. For now. Found a jellyfish. Named him Ambrose. Might be losing it already. You close the book and lie down. The waves whisper below. The gears of the lamp click gently above. You're exhausted, but also present. A strange peace settles over you, fragile as sea glass. Until the gulls start up again. You wake to the smell of kerosene and the sound of something ticking. Not the gentle kind, like a clock, but the kind that suggests something mechanical might be thinking about breaking down. You open your eyes, still alive, still here, still in a stone tower that hums and breathes like it resents your presence. You pull yourself upright, joints cracking like a sea captain's old ship, and climb the spiral staircase back to the lantern room. You check the gears first. There. What keep the lamp rotating? The steady, sweeping motion that turns a simple flame into a life-saving signal. A stuck gear means the beam freezes, and when the beam freezes, well, let's just say captains get grumpy when they hit rocks you were supposed to be warning them about. Today, the ticking is coming from the weight drive mechanism. It's like a giant, vertical clock. Every few hours, you have to wind it up by cranking a long chain with a hefty iron weight attached. Gravity pulls it down, turning gears, which slowly rotate the light. It's mechanical ballet, and you're the tired, unpaid conductor. You set down your coffee, which today tastes suspiciously like rope water, and grab the crank. The iron weight is heavier than your regrets, and your arm protests with every turn. You mutter things under your breath, words like employment standards and unionize that don't mean much in 1893. Eventually, the chain locks into place. The gear train clunks in satisfaction. The lens resumes its hypnotic spin, casting its gaze into the dull gray beyond. Next, the wick. You kneel beside the lamp, lifting the protective brass ring, and inspect the wick. If it's too short, the light dies fast. If it's too long, it smokes and soots up the lens. You trim it delicately with the small scissors provided, like you're giving a haircut to a candle with trust issues. Then the chimney glass, always dirty, always greasy. You wipe it with the sacred chamois cloth, muttering a prayer to whatever maritime spirit governs optical clarity. Some keepers used old newspapers for this, which works surprisingly well. One even claimed that the Boston Globe cleaned best. Historians still argue whether that was due to its ink or us Lighthouse superstition. And now your most important task of the day. Not dying. Slipping on the spiral stairs, knocking over the lamp, setting your wool sleeve on fire, or mistiming. The wick trim could all lead to that classic 1890s demise. Accidental illumination incident. You move slowly, deliberately, and with the kind of solemn care normally reserved for bomb disposal, halfway through your routine, you hear something outside. A thump. Then another. Not the wind, not gulls. You pause. You step out onto the balcony, and glance down. A loose shutter slaps against the stone. You squint and see the hinge has cracked. Great. You make a mental note to fix it this afternoon after winding the mechanism again, polishing the glass again, and maybe crying into a box of salted crackers. You descend the stairs carefully, count your steps, 47 of them. Every day, you start noticing things like that now. The exact time it takes the light to make a full rotation, 14 seconds. The number of squeaks in the floorboards between your room and the oil closet, 7. It's a lighthouse thing, or an I haven't seen another human in 12 days thing. Either way. By mid-morning, the wind picks up. You pause outside, eyeing the clouds. You've begun to develop what the other keepers called sky sense, an uncanny ability to read the mood of the weather based on things like bird flight, paths, and how much your left knee hurts. You decide to close the upper shutters before it gets worse. You climb back to the lantern room, open the heavy glass panel, and lean out into the bracing wind. The shutter bangs again. You wrestle it back into place and secure it with a piece of rope you sincerely hope was not previously involved in livestock management. Your fingers are going numb. Welcome to coastal carpentry. Back inside, the clockwork clunks again. It's time to wind the mechanism again. This part of the day never ends. You crank the weight back up the shaft, which has become something of a metaphor for your emotional state. Up, and down it falls again. You glance at your reflection in the lantern glass. Pale, wild hair. A salt-encrusted expression somewhere between determined and slightly haunted. You look like someone who's just seen too many shipwrecks, and frankly, you haven't even seen one yet. But the face fits the job. It always does. Eventually, you eat lunch standing up, because there's no real point in sitting. Tinned peaches and what might be bread pudding, or might be wallpaper. You make it halfway through before deciding it's better as bait for the mouse you swear you saw last night. Afternoon means cleaning again. Everything is always slightly damp, slightly dirty, and slightly threatening your health. You clean the gear teeth with a brush, dust the logbook shelves, mop a puddle that has formed mysteriously in your quarters even though it hasn't rained in 3 days. Ghost pee? Possibly. Not your business. As the sun begins its slow descent, assuming it bothers to appear at all, you take a moment to breathe. You lean against the railing again, watching the golden hue roll across the sea. It's your only real show. No curtains, no intermission. Just wave after wave, and the occasional seabird who looks as tired as you feel. The light starts up once more, just as dusk kisses the horizon. You watch the beam reach out like a steady hand, over and over, like it's patting the ocean on the back and whispering, "You're not alone." Back downstairs, you scribble another entry. March 3rd, 1893. Everything worked today, light held, wine rising again. Beginning to refer to the lens as her possibly normal, you crawl into bed fully clothed, one hand resting on your oil lamp like a security blanket. The ticking of the gear above is a lullaby now. You drift off, dreaming of cranks, chamois cloth, and that one shutter you still haven't fixed. Morning greets you with a gentle drip drip drip. You open one eye. The ceiling above your cot has sprung another leak. You sigh, roll out from beneath it, and instinctively move the tin basin half an inch to the left to catch the droplets, a very scientific process involving trial, error, and mild muttering. The rain started sometime in the night, soft at first, then thundering by dawn. Your boots squelch as you head downstairs. You suspect they're growing things now new, possibly intelligent life forms evolving in the damp leather. You name the left one Nigel. You don't name the right one. It doesn't deserve it after yesterday's blister betrayal. Breakfast is mold. Or rather, bread that has chosen to embrace a second career as mold. You scrape off the fuzz and pretend it's cheese. Add a spoonful of jam, which tastes oddly metallic, and call it a balanced meal. That's the trick out here. Find the optimism, or at least, the least soggy piece of it. Then it's time to face the pantry. You unlock the little supply room behind the kitchen with the kind of ceremony that should probably involve a trumpet fanfare. The shelves stare back at you with the same expression you wear when someone asks about your 5-year plan. Tired, unsure, and barely stocked. Tinned beef, pickled turnips, more hardtack than anyone has ever asked for, and one deeply suspicious jar labeled fish pudding. You don't ask, you just leave it. Pantry mice, on the other hand, have no qualms about the inventory. You've been hearing them for days, bold little scratchers in the corners, utterly fearless. You tried scaring them off with stomping, then you tried shouting. Now you're onto a highly advanced psychological warfare tactic, narrating your thoughts at them in a vaguely threatening tone. Today, you set the trap again. Not a snap trap, just a baited tin can and a plank. It's more for show. You suspect the mice consider it a game. Last night, one of them left a hardtack crumb under your pillow. You try not to read into it. Back upstairs, the lighthouse groans. Not metaphorically, actually. The building shifts slightly in high winds, and the stones let you know how they feel about it. It's like being inside an old man's ribcage. You check the kitchen floor again. More puddles, and a new leak. You start a second basin and consider applying for a grant to study the interior rainfall patterns of poorly maintained maritime structures. Lunch is cold tin stew. You eat it by the window, watching waves roll in under leaden skies. The sea has moods, and today it's in a brooding one. You swear it's glaring at you. You glare back, because you've got nothing better to do. Mid-afternoon brings the highlight of the day. Reorganizing your canned goods by label color. You pretend it's for efficiency, but honestly, it's just to break the monotony. You line them up like little soldiers. You feel proud. You knock one over. You feel less proud. You sit down to write in your log, but instead, your pen wanders. You begin doodling a rather heroic mouse holding a spear, standing atop a tin of peaches like he's conquered it. His name, you decide, is Admiral Crumbsworth. You feel better afterward. Probably not sane, but better. Later, you take a bucket outside to catch rainwater. The fresh stuff is worth its weight in gold, assuming you can keep it free of debris and seagull opinions. You watch the water pour in, rhythmic and clear. The bucket fills slowly. You let yourself imagine what it might be like to drink something that hasn't touched rust or smelled vaguely of fish. And then, of course, dinner. Tonight's menu is a creative reinterpretation of what food should be. Salted cod boiled, potatoes also boiled. Flavored with ... hope. It's not terrible, but it's not good either. You take a bite and realize it would pair well with forgetting what real flavor tastes like. You sit by the stove afterward, trying to warm your hands. The flames crackle, the kettle whistles, and the wind starts up again outside. You think about home, or what home used to be. A kitchen that didn't leak, a table that didn't wobble, a mother who insisted on 3 vegetables, even when you protested. You'd kill for a boiled carrot right now. And the mice are back. You hear them squeaking softly. You don't bother scaring them off. One of them pokes his nose out from under the shelf. It's Admiral Crumbsworth. Or, you've just finally snapped. You nod at him and return to your journal. March 4, 1893. Rained all day. Pantry is increasingly mouse-run. Morale is steady. Dinner was edible. Technically, you clean your plate, rinse it with boiled rainwater, and stack it on the drying rack like a trophy. You light your bedside lamp and settle in, listening to the muffled roar of the waves. It's like the sea is whispering ancient things to the stones, and the stones are whispering them to you. You close your eyes. Somewhere in the dark, the mice snicker. By the time you light your lamp the next morning, the rain has stopped, but everything is still damp, including your soul. Your clothes are cold and clammy. Your boots squish in places they shouldn't, and the wick of your lantern sulks as it sputters to life. You try to hum something cheerful as you shave using a tiny cracked mirror and a blade that's lost all will to cut. It ends up less a shave and more a polite suggestion to the stubble that maybe it could try growing in a different direction. Then it's logbook time. You sit at your rickety desk. The official Lighthouse forms spread before you like an accountant's. Fever dream, wind direction, barometric pressure, sea swell height, visibility, fog presence, lamp status. Everything has a box. Everything must be measured, even if it seems pointless. You dip your pen in the inkwell and begin. Your handwriting, once neat and optimistic, is beginning to resemble the kind of script found in cursed manuscripts. You log. The wind is westerly, moderate, the sky as gray again, and the sea as like an angry old dog with arthritis. That last bit, unfortunately, doesn't fit in the tiny box dot. Once you've recorded the day's atmosphere, you shift to the weather correspondence. The U.S. Lighthouse Board expects detailed reports, and occasionally you get one back, usually with corrections. Please avoid poetic embellishment. One read last week. You ignore that, obviously. You write a neat paragraph. Steady wind from the west. No unusual bird activity. Lens rotation smooth. Lantern operating without irregularity. No sightings of vessels since Tuesday. Then you pause and add in small script. Observed mouse attempting to steal a biscuit. Admirable determination. You fold the letter. Seal it with a bit of wax you melted from the candle stub, and place it in the outgoing mail pouch, a canvas bag that will sit, waiting, in the dock box until the supply boat next arrives. Possibly next week, possibly next month. This, you think, is what passes for communication now. You wander outside to check the flag. It hangs limp, wet from last night's storm. You haul it down, replace it with a dry one, and raise it back up slow. Practiced, alone, there's a strange dignity in it. No one sees it, but you do it anyway. That's the keeper's code. Do the thing. Even if no one's watching. The dock is empty. As usual, no boat. No news. Just a seagull who seems to be mocking your morning routine. You glare at him, he poops near your boot. The war continues. You return inside and check the telegraph line. The lighthouse has a wire that runs to a small station. On the mainland at least. It used to. You're not entirely convinced it still works. Sometimes you tap out a weather update and imagine some poor soul in Portland nodding along with your Morse code musings. Other times, you tap nonsense just to feel something. Today, you tap out a basic message. Tower intact. All systems functional. Request salt, candles, tobacco. Spirits low, human, not mechanical. You pause. Then, for your own amusement, you add, also, please send oranges. The scurvy fear is getting louder. There's no reply, of course. You flip through the Lighthouse instruction manual again, a worn leather-bound volume that insists on using the phrase with utmost diligence at least once per page. It's full of stern advice. Never leave the lens unattended while lit. Clean soot with soft cloth, not seawater. Refrain from singing too loudly. The lens mechanism. That last one feels oddly specific. Historians still argue whether this was added due to mechanical sensitivity or one particularly dramatic tenor on the Massachusetts coast. You reread your own marginalia from earlier in the month. Don't polish glass in rage. One note says, makes it worse. Another, use fewer beans. No one wins. A third, figure out if that seal on Tuesday was real. By midday, your focus shifts to cleaning the brass fittings in the lantern room. The salt air does a number on the metal up there. Everything tarnishes faster than you can say oxidation. You polish with slow, circular motions, catching glimpses of your own face in the gleam. Pale, weathered, with that distinct look of someone who might befriend a fish out of boredom. You start talking to the lens again. Not in any dramatic way, just murmuring. You're doing great. Keep spinning. Sweetheart. Let's not catch fire today. Yeah, You'd be surprised how comforting it is, talking to inanimate objects. They don't interrupt. The boat still doesn't. Come, you eat your lunch in silence. Some pickled beets and that same bread from yesterday. Now somewhat livelier with its mold flare. You try to draw a smiley face in the beet juice for fun, but it just ends up looking like a warning symbol. Afterward, you sit with your mail pouch and begin writing a letter. Not a log report, but a real letter. To her. Dearest M, the sea hasn't taken me yet. I still climb the stairs. Still light the flame, still argue with mice. I miss you in ways that make no sense in words. The gulls laugh like they know I'm lonely. They probably do. I wish I could tell you something lovely, but it's mostly wind and waves and weird dreams. You pause, glance out at the water, then continue. Still, the light turns, the sea stays put, and I remain. You seal the letter and place it in the pouch alongside the weather report. It might sit there for weeks, but still it's written. Evening creeps in, and once again you climb the spiral stairs. The crank resists, but you wind it up. The lamp flares to life. The lens turns. Out beyond the rocks, a speck of light twinkles in reply ship. Maybe, far away. You wonder if they see your beacon, if they know someone's here. Someone watching. You press your palm against the glass, just for a moment. Then, descend. March 5, 1893. No boat. No messages. Spirit steady. Wrote her again. Told the truth. You lie in bed with the letter still in your head. The waves breathe below. The lens hums above. The mice scratch, and the light turns. You know it's going to be a strange day when the fog shows up before your coffee does. You wake to a world erased. The windows are blind. The sea, the sky gone, all you see is gray. Not a poetic mist, either. This is the kind of fog that swallows sound, bends shapes, and makes you wonder if reality called in sick. You stumble toward the lantern room with your boots half-laced and your brain still foggier than the air outside. It's not even fully dawn, but you can't risk waiting. Fog is a lighthouse keeper's version of red alert. You light the lamp early, even though the manual says to conserve oil during daylight hours. Manuals don't have to live with the guilt. You crank the weight with extra care, and the great lens begins to turn again, slicing the murk with its golden beam. Then comes the other job. The one you didn't think about much during training, the foghorn. You trudge down to the engine shed, just outside the tower. Inside waits the diabolical contraption itself, a massive compressed air horn that wheezes like a bronchitic whale and demands your constant attention when visibility drops. You fire it up, it groans. You adjust a lever, it bellows. There it is, that deep, mournful sound, echoing across the ocean like a warning wrapped in a sigh. Every 90 seconds, it calls out, keep away, dangerous rocks. Someone still cares. You stand there a moment, letting it vibrate in your chest. The horn is alive, in its way, not subtle, not delicate but faithful. Once it's running on its timer, you head back inside, but the sound follows you, a steady moan, a pulse. Some keepers found it soothing. Others went mad. Historians still argue whether the infamous Bell Rock howler of 1878 lost his mind from the foghorn, or from talking to his dinner plate for 6 straight months. You make your coffee. It tastes like guilt and smoke, but it's warm. You sit by the window. Not that there's much to see. The fog has consumed the world. Only your own light, sweeping around and around, reminds you there's anything beyond the tower walls. You remember a story one of the old keepers told during training, about a ship that missed the horn during a storm and hit the rocks so hard, half the hull still sits there, just beneath the surface. They say on foggy nights, you can still hear it creaking, like it's trying to finish its journey. You're not sure if you believe that, but you also haven't gone swimming to check. Around noon, the temperature drops further. Your breath fogs indoors now. The damp clings to everything. Your coat feels heavier. Your hair stays wet no matter what. You dry your socks near the stove, only for them to soak through again 10 minutes later. The lighthouse has a way of making time loop like that. You oil the horn valves and check the pressure gauge. You refill the lamp's reservoir. You mop a new puddle under the stairwell. And through it all, the foghorn continues every 90 seconds, like a metronome for madness. You step out onto the gallery deck just once to look. The gray is so thick you can't even see the water below. You could be in a cloud, or a dream, or the world's worst cotton ball. Somewhere out there, ships are creeping past, listening. You hope. You wave your hand in front of your face. Nothing, not even a hint of shadow. And then, in the distance something moves. You freeze. There, out past the edge of the gallery. A vague shape. Tall, angular. You blink, squint, lean out dangerously far. But it's gone. Just fog. Just your mind playing tricks. Or not. The sea has a habit of carrying ghosts. Sailors lost, ships swallowed, promises broken. You've read the stories. You've heard the whispers. And when the fog comes in like this, you understand how those stories are born. Back inside, you try to focus on the paperwork. You write visibility. Less than 100 feet. Under hazards observed. You hesitate. What's the right phrase for possible ghost schooner? You settle for unconfirmed vessel silhouette. Mid-afternoon, you nap in your chair with a blanket over your knees like a retired pirate. You dream of bells ringing underwater and a woman waving from a lifeboat that never reaches shore. You wake with a start. The horn is still calling. The lens is still turning. You check the clock. 90 seconds. Just like always, the fog holds until evening. You light the lamp again out of ritual. Though it's been burning all day, the sky begins to dim, but the fog barely changes. It wraps the tower tighter, like the sea doesn't want to let go. You eat dinner without tasting it, just a few crackers and whatever passed for meat inside that unlabeled tin. You read a page from Moby Dick and chuckle bitterly when the whale shows up. Night comes, and with it, the deeper quiet. The foghorn's moan now echoes in your skull, even when it's silent. You pace once, twice, 3 times around the gallery before retreating to your room. One last journal entry before bed. March 6, 1893. Fog, all day. The world reduced to gray and sound. Saw something. Maybe a ship. Maybe not. The horn is faithful. So you blow out your bedside lamp and listen. Not to the mice. Not to the sea. To the horn. Long, low, endless, calling out, just in case someone's listening. You wake with the taste of soot in your mouth and sea brine in your lungs. Not because the storms come back, though, judging by the rattle in the window panes. It's considering it, because you fell asleep reading one of her letters again. You don't get new ones, of course. The last arrived nearly 4 months ago, folded neatly, soft with rereading. It's tucked into your journal now. Between a weather log and a sketch of Admiral Crumbsworth wielding a fork. This morning. You don't light the lamp right away. There's still time. Instead, you stare at the paper and trace her handwriting with your finger. She had a way of curling her Ys like little hooks. She once joked you could use them to reel her back in when the sea got too loud. You write back. Often. Even though you know there's no guarantee they'll ever reach her. Or if she's still waiting, or if she ever was. Historians still argue whether Keeper's letters were more diary than communication, an act of hope, more than one of connection. You put on your coat. It's the same coat you arrived in, heavier. Now, not with salt, but with stories. You step outside. The morning air is crisp and damp, the kind that settles in your bones like a tenant who's not planning to pay rent. You walk down to the shed and retrieve the canvas pouch. The outgoing mail. There's a week's worth of reports now, sealed and folded with care. And among them, another letter to her. Woke to foghorns again. Still think about your bread. It was always too sweet. I miss that. You pause, to the end of the pencil, then add. The wind sounds different today. Like it's pretending to be a voice. Or maybe it's yours. Hard to say anymore. You seal the envelope, nestle it among the others, and set the pouch back on its hook. Still no boat. Still no reply. You light the lamp, tend the wick. The motions feel smoother now, automatic. Like your hands and the machine have made peace. That or you're becoming part of the lighthouse. You climb up to the lantern room and find yourself humming a tune you used to whistle at her while chopping wood, back when you had a garden and neighbors and seasons that didn't smell like gold rope. The rhythm of the lens turning lulls you. You lean against the cool glass and watch the horizon. It's unusually calm today. The ocean stretched out flat as a frozen bed sheet dot, and then you see it. A ship, small, probably fishing, bright red hull, white sails. Close enough to glimpse the men on deck moving around. One of them waves. You wave back. They may not see you, but it feels right. The light swings slowly across their path. For a moment, you imagine being on that boat instead. Salt wind in your face, purpose in every pull of the oar. But then the boat disappears behind the rocky point, and the world shrinks again. Back inside, you eat lunch while rereading her letter. You know the words by heart. I hope you're safe. I hope the light still works. I hope you're not talking to seaweed again. You laugh, and maybe tear up a little. Just a little. You decide to write her another note. Just a quick one. Scratched. In the margins of the logbook, today the sea behaved. Must be, because you were in my head. You think about pressing seaweed into the paper, like you used to. But it's too damp, and besides your seaweed pressing technique has declined. Since becoming a full-time foghorn whisperer, that evening, you make dinner extra carefully. The tin of pork, the last potato, a bit of salt you've been saving. You light a candle. You set the places at the table. You sit across from the empty chair and talk as though she's there. Tell her about the red boat, about Admiral Crumbsworth's latest offense chewed through the salt bag, about how you found her old scarf in the bottom of your trunk and wore it all day. You pour tea into 2 cups. You drink yours. Hers stays warm in your imagination. After dinner, you wrap her scarf around your neck and go up to the gallery. The stars are out tonight, glittering over the black water like shattered lantern glass. The air is cold and clear. You whisper her name to the sea. Just once, just enough. The lamp spins on. The beam sweeps over the ocean, over your outstretched hand, over memories you never quite put down. You return to your room and write in the log. March 7, 1893. Sea calm, lamp steady, heart uncertain, still writing to ghosts. Still hoping they write back. You slide her old letter beneath your pillow. A ritual now. One more routine to keep the silence from swallowing you whole. And in the dark, as the lamp turns, and the waves murmur below, you dream not of storms, not of ghosts, not of foghorns, but of a warm kitchen, soft bread, and someone humming off-key beside you. The next morning, something's off. Not the weather, it's dreary and cold, as expected. Not the lamp, it's burning steady, casting its usual slow, revolving eye across the choppy sea. Not even your joints, which are predictably stiff and unamused by the damp. No. What's off is the silence. There's always some kind of sound here. Wind, gulls, the faint clunk of wood settling. But today, nothing. It's like the whole island hit mute. You wait for the gulls. Nothing. Not even Admiral Crumbsworth, whose nightly shenanigans usually include rolling walnuts across the pantry floor like he's bowling. You head outside. The sky is a pale sheet of silver, heavy with weather that hasn't decided what kind of trouble it wants to be yet. The ocean is sluggish, gray, the horizon a smudge. You scan the water. Nothing. No ships, no birds, no movement. It's eerie, in that the world forgot to wake up kind of way. You go about your routine with more awareness than usual. Check the oil in the lamp half full. Crank the gear system slightly more resistance than yesterday. Dust the lens still spotless from the afternoon before. You even talk to it. You still spinning. Sweetheart. Don't get shy on me now. It hums back with a faint, mechanical murmur. Loyal, you descend to the main level to check the supply crates. You've been rationing more carefully lately. There's only one can of peaches left, and it's been promoted to ceremonial status. You've reserved it for the first day the boat returns, or your birthday. Or, possibly, the day you finally befriend a seal. Your inventory report reads like a scavenger hunt. 3 candles, 1 cracked, 8 biscuits, 6 chipped, half a jar of molasses, an aggressively rusted tin labeled corn, something you're not hungry, but you eat anyway. A piece of bread, toasted until it resembles roof tile, and a spoonful of the molasses for morale. It tastes like regret and treacle. Still, you chew. You always chew. Mid-morning, the silence starts to get to you. You try humming again, something upbeat, something silly, but the notes fall flat, like they don't want to bounce off the walls anymore. The lighthouse feels tighter today, like the stone is contracting. You pull out the maintenance ledger and flip to the pages you've avoided. The ones about worst-case scenarios. Floods, fire, madness. Yes, it's there in print. Keepers are advised to monitor their own mental state for symptoms of solitude fatigue, including but not limited to conversations with inanimate objects, hallucinations of sea creatures, and sudden impulse to swim to the mainland. You chuckle, then stop, because you've done 2 out of 3. You decide to keep busy. First, you take the long pole brush and sweep cobwebs out of the upper stairwell. The dust rains down like powdered ghosts. Then you scrub the floorboards with brine, just because the manual says it builds character. You polish the brass fittings until they squeak. You reorganize your journal entries by mood. And still, no sound. You finally hear something around noon. A knock, just once, on the door. You freeze. There are no visitors. Not out here. Not without a boat. And you haven't seen a boat. You open the door slowly, bracing yourself. No one's there. Just a small bundle sitting on the mat, wrapped in oilcloth, tied with string. No note. You stare at it for a long time. Then, with hands you try to keep from trembling, you pick it up and carry it inside. It's light, dry, carefully wrapped. You sit at your desk, unwrap it slowly. Inside, a woolen pair of mittens, handmade, and a single lemon. You don't breathe for a moment. The lemon feels impossible. Bright, vibrant, fragrant. You press it to your face and inhale. It smells like sunshine, like summer, like a memory you hadn't realized was missing. You don't question it too hard. You place the mittens beside your cot. You place the lemon on the windowsill, like a little yellow lighthouse of its own. You spend the rest of the afternoon scanning the horizon, but nothing appears. No boat, no figure, just the sea, unbothered. You want to write about it in the log, but you don't, not yet. Instead, you open your journal. March 8, 1893. Something came today. No signature, just a lemon and warmth. Might cry later. And then, because you can't help it, you draw a small sketch of the lemon with a radiant glow around it, like a saint. That night, the gulls return. You hear them sometime around midnight, squawking half-heartedly from the ledges. The mice scratch in the pantry again. Crumbsworth, apparently, lives. The silence breaks. The world exhales. You fall asleep holding the mittens, warm and woolly, and smelling faintly of lavender, and the lemon watches from the window, bright against the dark. The morning after the unexpected gift arrives with a curious calm, as if the lighthouse itself is holding its breath. You awake to soft light filtering through the damp window panes, casting a muted glow across the peeling walls. The lemon still sits on the windowsill, radiating an almost surreal cheerfulness amid the gray gloom. You find yourself talking to it a bit ridiculous, you admit, but sometimes the absurd is the only comfort out here. You slip the woolen mittens onto your hands, feeling their warmth seep in, a small but undeniable reassurance. Your fingers tingle with a mix of gratitude and suspicion. Who could have sent them? How did they get here? Historians still argue whether such anonymous gifts were common among lighthouse keepers, or if it was just a particularly kind or curious neighborly gesture. You pull on your coat and step outside into the fresh morning air, the salty breeze carrying a hint of something unfamiliar, a faint scent of wood smoke from the Maine land, perhaps a fisherman's fire or a distant home preparing breakfast. It reminds you of a time when you'd had a hearth, a family, and voices beyond the endless whisper of the sea. You spend the day methodically going through your routine with a renewed sense of purpose. The foghorn sounds crisp and steady. The lamp rotates smoothly, and the gears respond obediently to your touch. Even the mice seem more spirited today, scurrying busily about as if sensing the shift in your mood. Mid-afternoon brings an unexpected visitor, or rather, a visitor's shadow. From the gallery, you spot a small fishing skiff making its way toward the island, bobbing rhythmically over the waves. Your heart picks up pace. You wave your lantern beam in a slow, deliberate pattern, hoping the boat sees your signal. As the skiff draws closer, you see a weather-beaten man at the tiller, nodding as he spots your light. He's the first person you've seen in weeks, and the sight is simultaneously thrilling and overwhelming. He comes ashore with a basket filled with supplies and a letter bearing the familiar wax seal of the Lighthouse board. You invite him in, and over a meager meal, he shares news from the mainland. Supplies will be arriving regularly now, weather permitting, and a fresh crew will rotate in soon. Most importantly, he delivers a letter from your loved one, words inked with warmth and longing that revive a part of you thought had faded. Later that evening, you sit by the lantern, reading the letter under its golden glow. The sea hums its steady song outside, and for the first time in a long time, the lighthouse feels less like a prison and more like a beacon, not just for ships, but for hope. You write a brief journal entry. March 9, 1893. Visitor today. Supplies and news. A letter from her. Light burns brighter inside. As you extinguish the bedside lamp and settle into your cot, the woolen mittens resting on your chest, you feel a deep calm washing over you, mingling with the steady pulse of the lantern above. Outside, the waves continue their timeless dance, and the lighthouse stands vigilant, a silent guardian of the shore and the soul. The dawn arrives with an unspoken promise, filtered through the faintest shimmer of pink on the horizon. You wake slowly, the woolen mittens still warm on your bedside table, a comforting presence beside the cold stone walls. Your fingers itch to write, but first, there's the ritual: lighting the lamp, winding the gears, cleaning the lens with the patience of someone who knows the weight of a single missed rotation. Today, the sea looks kinder. The waves roll gently, almost lazily, lapping at the rocky shore without their usual ferocity. The foghorn rests silent for now, its mournful wail replaced by the soothing sound of water against stone. You step outside onto the gallery, breathing in the crisp air mixed with the faint scent of pine from the mainland. A small flock of gulls circles overhead, their cries piercing the quiet morning. It's a sound you've come to cherish, a reminder that life persists even in solitude. After tending to the lantern, you descend to the kitchen for breakfast. You treat yourself to the last can of peaches, savoring their sticky sweetness like a rare treasure. You imagine sharing them with her, smiling at the thought of her grimacing at your lack of culinary skill. The day stretches ahead, and you decide to focus on maintenance. The lighthouse demands constant care, labor of love and necessity. You scrub the wooden stairs until your palms sting, polish the brass fittings until they gleam, and inspect the roof for any signs of the persistent leaks that plague the tower. As you work, your mind drifts to the stories you've collected over the months, the legends whispered by sailors, the tales etched into the very stones beneath your feet. The phantom ship of Penobscot Bay, said to appear on foggy nights, its spectral sails glowing faintly as it searches for a lost crew. You recall the debates among historians about whether these apparitions were genuine or merely tricks of light and fear. Your thoughts are interrupted by a sudden cry. You look up to see a young seagull caught in a tangle of fishing net, struggling desperately. Without hesitation, you climb down and free the bird, its feathers ruffled but eyes bright, It takes a moment to regain its composure before soaring away. Free once more, you smile, feeling a spark of connection to this small act of kindness. It's a reminder that even in isolation, your actions ripple outward, touching lives unseen. As evening falls, you prepare your modest meal and settle by the lantern. You write in your journal, March 10, 1893. The sea whispers tales and secrets. Free to gull today, proof that small kindnesses matter. You blow out your candle and lay down. The soft hum of the lighthouse, a lullaby that carries you into dreams filled with hope and distant shores. The morning greets you with a chill sharper than usual, the kind that sneaks past your wool layers and settles deep in your bones. Your breath hangs in the air like smoke, each exhale a reminder that winter ain't quite finished with this lonely outpost yet. You wrap the woolen mittens tighter around your hands and step out onto the gallery, the wind biting but invigorating. The sea is restless today, waves crash against the rocks with a furious insistence, sending sprays of salt high into the air. The lighthouse shudders in response, stones creaking like an old man complaining about the weather. You hold fast, gripping the iron railing and watching the horizon, searching for any sign of approaching vessels. Your thoughts wander to the storm of 1886, the one that nearly claimed the lighthouse itself. The storm so fierce it tore the lantern's glass, forcing keepers to rig makeshift windows from oiled canvas. The stories say the keepers stayed through it all, steadfast and defiant. Historians still argue whether the damage was entirely from the storm or partly due to the lighthouse's own age and neglect. Today's storm clouds build slowly, dark and brooding. You double-check the lamp's oil supply, wind the gears tighter, and secure the door to the lantern room. The horn stands ready, silent but threatening to roar at the first sign of trouble. The wind picks up, carrying with it a sharp tang of rain. You head downstairs, wiping salt from your brow, and prepare a hot meal. It's not much stew from a tin, some bread hardened by time, but it's warmth in your stomach and comfort in your hands. As the first drops fall, you sit by the window, watching the gray skies deepen. The rain lashes against the glass, blurring the world outside into watercolor streaks. You feel small here, a solitary figure against the vastness of nature's fury. You jot in your journal, March 11, 1893. Storm gathering. The lighthouse braces. So do I. The hours pass in a slow blur of preparation and waiting. The horn's bellows finally pierce the storm's roar, a deep, urgent call warning any nearby ships of the dangers hidden beneath the waves. You climb the stairs as lightning splits the sky, the lantern's glow cutting through sheets of rain like a beacon of hope and defiance. The wind howls through the cracks in the walls, but inside, you are steady, the keeper of light and safety. The night is long and wild, but dawn finally breaks, soft and tentative. The storm has passed, leaving the world washed clean and quiet. Once more. You step outside and breathe deeply, the fresh air a balm. The sea glistens under the rising sun, and somewhere in the distance, a gull's cry pierces the calm. You smile, weary but resolute. The calm after the storm is almost disorienting. You wake to a world washed clean, salt and rain mingling in the air, birdsong returning as if nature's orchestra is tuning up again. The lighthouse creaks softly, like it's settling back into its role after the night's wild tantrum. You move through the morning rituals with a tired grace, lighting the lamp, winding the gears, polishing the lens until it gleams like a beacon of stubborn hope. Each task familiar, grounding, like a heartbeat you can count on. Breakfast is modest, hardtack softened in tea, a few spoonfuls of preserved fruit. Not exactly a feast, but it sustains you. You sit by the window and watch as fishermen's boats dot the horizon, their sails bright against the pale sky. The radio silence of the past weeks has finally broken. A supply boat is due tomorrow. They say fresh letters, food, news. The promise of connection feels almost unreal after so much solitude. You spend the day repairing minor damage from the storm, the loose shingles on the roof, the stubborn leak near the stairwell, the squeaking door that protests every guest. Each fix a small victory, a reminder that this place endures because of care. In the afternoon, you climb the tower again, pausing to lean out over the gallery. The sea stretches endlessly, calm and vast. You imagine the journeys of the ships that rely on your light, the lives that depend on your vigilance. You write in your journal, March 12, 1893. Storm past. Supply boat soon. The sea is quiet, but I remain watchful. As dusk falls, you prepare the lamp for the night. Its steady glow a silent promise to those at sea. You think of her again, how she would tease you about your obsession with the light, your careful notes, your conversations with mice and lemons. You smile softly, feeling a warmth that no storm can wash away. You settle into your cot, the woolen mittens folded beside you. Outside, the lighthouse stands tall, a guardian in the gathering darkness, and you, the keeper, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The next day greets you with a fragile optimism. The air is crisp but clear, the sky a pale blue washed with streaks of pink. You awake before dawn, as always, and ascend the spiral stairs to light the lamp. The mechanism hums smoothly, the lens catching the first rays and casting a hopeful beam into the dark. As you finish your morning routine, the faint sound of a whistle reaches your ears, a distant ship approaching. You peer through the fog glass and make out the silhouette of a steamship cutting through the waves, smoke trailing behind it like a sigh. The supply boat. Finally, you prepare the dock for the arrival, adjusting the signal flag and tidying the landing area. The boat pulls in, and you greet the crew with a mix of relief and curiosity. They bring letters, fresh food, tools, and news. From the mainland, a lifeline that rekindles your spirits. Among the parcels is a package from home. Books, warm socks, and a photograph of her smiling face. You handle it reverently, feeling the weight of connection across the miles. You spend the afternoon restocking supplies, repairing equipment, and sharing stories with the crew. Their voices are a balm, filling the lighthouse with warmth and laughter. As evening falls, you write in your journal, March 13, 1893. Supplies arrived. Connection restored. The light burns brighter with hope. You place the photograph beside your bed, a reminder of why you endure. The lighthouse stands steadfast, its beam a beacon not just for ships, but for the heart. The days grow longer now, the promise of spring stirring beneath the persistent chill. You move through your duties with a renewed rhythm, the supply boat's arrival having broken the endless cycle of isolation. Letters from home come more frequently, their words weaving warmth into your long, solitary hours. You take to sketching, in your journal, capturing the rugged coastline, the swirling sea, and the intricate mechanics of the lantern room. Your drawings are imperfect, but they carry a rawness that matches the wild beauty surrounding you. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, you climb to the gallery to light the lamp. The world is quiet, save for the gentle lapping of waves and the distant call of seabirds settling in for the night. You think of the countless keepers before you, who brave storms, loneliness, and the endless turning of the lens. Their stories are etched into the stones beneath your feet, their spirits intertwined with the light you tend. Historians still debate the true nature of lighthouse life, whether it was a noble duty or a punishment cloaked in romanticism. You know it is both, and neither. It is simply what it is, a quiet vigil against the dark. You write in your journal, March 14, 1893. The light endures. So do I. You descend the stairs and prepare for rest, the steady glow of the lantern casting gentle shadows. Outside, the sea whispers its ancient song, and the lighthouse stands sentinel silent, steadfast, eternal. The night wraps around you like a thick, familiar blanket. The lamp above you pulses steadily, casting a revolving circle of light that chases the darkness from the rocky shore below. You lie in your cot, the woolen mittens folded neatly on the bedside table, the scent of the lemon still faint, but comforting in the room's cool air. Your thoughts drift gently, carried by the soft rhythm of the waves against the cliff. The endless turning of the lens feels like a heartbeat, steady, reliable, patient. It reminds you that even in solitude, there is purpose. Even in silence, there is meaning. You recall the strange and beautiful moments, the foghorn's mournful call, the unexpected gift on the doorstep, the relief of the supply boat's arrival, the little acts of kindness and connection that stitch together the fabric of your days. Historians still argue whether the isolation of lighthouse keeping was a form of punishment or a chosen sanctuary. For you, it was both a challenge and a refuge, a place where you confronted the vastness of the sea and yourself. You write your final journal entry. March 15, 1893. The light turns. The sea listens. I remain, watching, waiting, and remembering. Here, in this tower, I have found a strange kind of peace. You blow out your bedside lamp and settle beneath the worn blankets. Outside, the waves murmur softly. The lighthouse's beam sweeps across the water one last time. And then, silence. The night deepens around you, gentle and endless, like a slow breath carried on the salt air. The lighthouse stands quietly now, its beam a soft glow reaching into the vast darkness. Beyond, you feel the weight of the day of days past lifting slowly, replaced by a calm that wraps around you like a whispered lullaby. Imagine the sea stretching out, vast and timeless, the waves rocking gently beneath a blanket of stars. The wind hums a familiar tune through the cracks in the stone, a soothing song for a weary soul. Here, in this moment, you are part of something, enduring, something steady amidst the ever-changing tides. Your thoughts soften, drifting like clouds carried by a gentle breeze. The loneliness fades into a quiet companionship, the memory of voices, the touch of warmth, the promise of light guiding the way. You carry those moments with you, tucked safely beneath your skin. Let your breathing slow, steady. Feel the calm seep in, filling the spaces left by worrying and fatigue. The world outside grows distant. The lighthouses glow, a beacon guiding you toward rest. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let yourself ease into sleep. The sea is watching, the light is turning, and everything is as it should be.